Welcome to this FAME Leadership Screencast, part of the Need to Know series. In this short presentation, we'll provide a brief overview of FAME Module 3 content, highlight what teachers tell us about what they appreciate learning in Mod 3, and share information about what school leaders can do to address issues that might arise during implementation. In Module 3, teachers are focused on the second and third quadrants in the FAME model, eliciting and using evidence of learning. This work helps teachers answer the question, where is the learner now? During Mod 3, teachers explore how to plan for eliciting evidence, use 5 instructional routines to elicit evidence of learning, develop strategies to manage data and interpret evidence, and increase their use of evidence in the classroom. Eliciting and using evidence is the pulse of formative assessment. The daily use of evidence that builds from clear learning goals, success criteria, and learning progressions, allows teachers and students to keep track of where they are in their learning and to quickly consider steps to move learning forward. The first lesson in Module 3 helps teachers use the planning elements from Module 2 to elicit evidence. Planning involves determining which students need to be assessed, developing assessment tasks that align to learning goals, and identifying how students will demonstrate that learning over time. Module 3 introduces 5 specific routines for eliciting formative evidence. These routines are pre-assessment, classroom discussion and academic dialogue, questioning, analysis of students' written work, and observation. These routines are selected intentionally. We believe that having teachers add key aspects of formative assessment practices to their current instructional routines will allow for quicker and more effective adoption of daily formative assessment. In this module, teachers will see many examples of how to manage and track formative data. In addition, teachers learn to consider 2 questions when interpreting data. Where is the student on the learning progression? And how can the student move forward? Teachers adjust instruction based on their interpretation of the evidence, either by revisiting content, adjusting their pacing, regrouping students, or introducing new instructional materials. It's this adjustment that makes the data formative. Ultimately, collecting and using evidence of learning is the responsibility of both the teacher and the learner. In this module, the focus is on having teachers gain this understanding. In Module 4, we'll focus on the student's role in collecting and using evidence of learning. Many teachers tell us that this module content gives them insights into how to streamline and simplify data collection and use. One teacher told me some time ago that following this module, it felt like a weight had been taken from her shoulders. Like many teachers, she felt burdened from assessment expectations. In this module, teachers learn that they should assess when they need to better understand students' current learning status. That can be a real relief for teachers who have had many assessment expectations placed on them over the years. In this video clip, we'll hear from Courtney Laird, a FAME Cohort 1 teacher, as she offers insights about the value of Module 3 content.
I think the most surprising thing about formative assessment for my own instruction has been just how much more I've been able to learn from it, how much more I've been able to learn about the students, but then how much more it's helped to inform my practices. I've also really been amazed at how much the students are using the formative assessments themselves and using that to become more aware of their own misconceptions or their own understanding or lack of understanding, and they're really setting goals based on all of the success criteria and all of the ins and outs, the learning progressions, the really strong learning targets. They're using those in a way that I didn't expect them to use.
Courtney reminds us what you'll hear in Module 3 if all is going well and on track. Through this work, teachers better understand their students' progress, and they can get that information more quickly and with relative ease. While these ideas provide powerful incentives to keep teachers engaged, there are topics and concepts in Module 3 that it may help for leaders to consider and clarify. Here are 4 leadership essentials that will help you navigate Module 3 with your faculty. Leadership essential number 1, evidence collected and not used wastes instructional time. Keep this work as simple as possible. In formative assessment, we say that teachers should know where each student is on the learning progression. In other words, we collect evidence only when we need to know something more in order to help students move forward. Encourage teachers to use their professional judgment about when to collect evidence. This may cause you to rethink current assessment expectations related to benchmark or other assessments. Leadership essential number 2. Eliciting evidence needs to happen in the course of regular classroom instruction. In other words, eliciting and using evidence is not a separate thing. It is the thing. This can be hard for teachers to take on as we've not always thought about assessment as integrated within instruction. Encourage your teachers to think about how to make this work part of their daily instructional routines. Leadership Essential 3. Encourage teachers to use Part 2 FAME planning template. Teachers cannot use formative evidence unless they've thought in advance of how they'll use it during instruction. Part 2 of the FAME planning template, introduced in this lesson, is designed to help teachers consider in advance how they will immediately use the data they collect. This work, in combination with learning goals, success criteria, and learning progressions, helps teachers to elicit the most useful evidence and to interpret that evidence to guide next steps. Leadership Essential number 4. Formative assessment must build on and integrate with, rather than add to, teachers' instructional practices. Asking teachers to integrate this work into their current routines of questioning, academic dialogue, and pre-assessment is done with intention. All learning builds on what we know. We find teachers adopt more quickly when they are given time to explore how to build on known practices so that they can elicit and use evidence without disrupting classroom activities and expectations. In this brief clip, Dylan William, an international leader in formative assessment, shares some thoughts about how challenging it can be for teachers to change their instructional routines.
One of the things I've realized is that most teachers, in fact, probably all teachers, learn most of what they know about teaching before their 18th birthday. We learn about teaching by being students. Even if you go to a great teacher education program at a college, you'll only be there 4 years, and you've been in classrooms for 13. So when the pressure is on, when you're reacting in the classroom, you are relying on the scripts, the routines that you've learned about how classrooms work when you were a student. I often say that teachers actually know everything I tell them. The research on wait time, we showed, for example, that teachers typically wait for less than a second to give students a chance to answer a question they've asked before weakening it or asking somebody else. And we pointed teachers to this research that showed that really 3 seconds to 5 seconds was actually increased the level of dialogue in the classroom, increased the thoughtfulness of students, and did in fact improve student achievement. But what was interesting was most teachers already knew this. What they didn't do was do it in their own teaching. So one of the things we become very aware of is that getting clear about what needs to happen is the easy part of the problem. The hard part of the problem is helping teachers to do this in their own classrooms. And in some senses, we have a little more to learn from Weight Watchers than we do from education research, because we're trying to change habits. The reason that teachers find it so difficult to change what they do in the classroom is because they have a lot invested in the routines that get them through the lesson. Teachers are very practiced at stitching together these mini episodes that make a lesson a good lesson. And it's very hard to change that. It's a bit like asking a golfer to change their swing in the middle of a tournament. You're asking teachers to change what has been successful for them in order to be more successful. It's very hard to do, but the research shows very clearly that if you are serious about raising student achievement, there are no quick fixes. You aren't going to do it by changing class size, you aren't going to do it by changing school structures. It's about what happens day in, day out in the classroom that makes a big difference.
As your teachers work through Module 3, you may find yourself reflecting on the Dylan William quote, that we may have more to learn from Weight Watchers than we do from educational research, because we are, in this work, trying to change habits. The work of leaders in this module is just that, to help teachers change their current habits and routines. Even though teachers may say they know some of this content, it is often the case that it's not done in the classroom. Leaders must provide both encouragement and accountability to help change these habits. We've found that when leaders address all 4 of the Module 3 leadership essentials, that implementation issues are smoother. This gives teachers confidence to try out new strategies for eliciting, interpreting, and using formative evidence in the classroom. The leadership essentials are outlined on the FAME Leadership Considerations document. You can find this document in the FAME Leadership folder on the MSDE online platform. The Leadership Considerations document provides specific leadership guidance for all 5 FAME modules. Thanks for joining us. We remind you to visit us for the next screencast in the Need to Know series, 4 things leaders need to know to successfully implement FAME Module 4.